There's no such thing as bad weather. There's only bad gear. So what shelter do you pack? Do you pack a tarp? Do you pack a tent, camping hammock, or a bivvy? I'm going to break down the best and the worst of tarps versus tents. I'm Clarice, you're on the Live Ready channel. Before we get around to what kind of shelter we set up, really the most important thing with shelters is your campsite selection. So this is probably the flattest space that I'm going to find around here, but I'm also pretty much in the bend of a river because this right here is the river. I need to be careful because I know there's inclement weather, I know there's rain incoming, so this river might flood and it might actually flood this entire plain, which is probably why it's so nice and flat. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to set up here because I need to set up 2 shelters and I need a decent flat space. It is pretty rocky, but let's get to it. Right, so this is what I'm working with. I've got a UNIGEAR tarp that I'm going to attempt to set up as a teepee shelter. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to manage quite like I'd like to. I'm going to put that over here. It is a hammock tarp, so it's not a 10 by 10 or a perfectly square or even a rectangle, so it might be a little bit challenging. The other one over here is a UNIGEAR tent. This is the Space Dome 2 tent that I did a review on a little while ago. Pretty cool tent. Go and check it out. I'm going to post the links for both of these shelters in the description to this video. So if you feel like shopping for your bug out bag or for your adventures into the bush, go and check out the links in the description. All right, let me get started because the rain is pulling in. It's going to rain quite hard in a couple minutes from now, so I better hurry up. For the purpose of setting this tarp up as a teepee, I've got a couple of tent stakes, a crag hopper's trekking pole that I'm going to use shortly, and I've already lost one tent peg and found it again, so quite an interesting feat. I'm pretty much just going to follow the basic principles that you usually follow when you're setting up a tarp as a teepee shelter. More tent stakes. So what I'd like to do is just peg out the back, put the pole, the trekking pole in the middle, peg out the sides and do something really creative with the front. I'll drag you on the ground. Put UNIGEAR's nice logo at the front. This is not a sponsored video, by the way. No. Just me playing in the bush. Oh, this doesn't have to be such a mess. There's one extra grommet here. Right. Should be fine. This. Oh, that's pretty. I didn't think about that. How was I going to get this in here if it's so rocky? Never mind. This is more challenging than I thought it was going to be. And the last one. Back. The ideal is to aim it a bit towards the front, not quite towards the back, because otherwise you'll have no room in there. And I can stake out the sides. That'll be one of them. Just tie it to the bush. The other advantage of a tarp over a tent is that it tends to take up less room in your bag, and it also tends to weigh less. Obviously that depends on what kind of tarp you're carrying. You can quickly assemble a tarp shelter that allows you to work in a dry space, especially if it's raining. Right, so we've got a standing shelter. Now just to make some of the other sort of door. I've set up my TP tarp, done my creative entrance. At one point I had a guy line just up on the tracking pole just to keep it upright. It's so difficult to get tent stakes in here that I battled a little bit. The shape of the tarp wasn't actually such an issue. What was an issue was the tent stakes, and that's why I've taken to piling rocks on the tent stakes so that they don't come out of the ground, because I actually can't get them all the way in. Seems to be working fine. To be honest, I don't think that it's necessarily going to be the most storm-proof shelter. It would be nice to have a ground sheet underneath. I can fold the back in. It would be nice if I had a couple more tie-out points as well. That would allow me to actually fold the back in a lot easier, because I'd be able to tie out where I fold it, which at the moment I can't do. But yeah, not bad. Room enough in there for myself and my gear. From a sleeping perspective, not going to be the most comfortable night's sleep. I can move some of the rocks away, but that's why you've got ultralight mattresses, and hopefully you've packed a sleeping system on your way as well. At least one will stay dry in here. And now to go and set up the tent. Each and every person has a wealth of knowledge and experience to share with this community. So I've set up a Patreon and a Discord server so that you can connect with like-minded people. This also gives you access to exclusive content as well as previews to some of the upcoming YouTube Live Ready content. This also gives us an opportunity to discuss topics before the content is posted, and you might even find that your suggestions land up right here on the Live Ready channel. So I've got the tent and the tarp up. I must honestly say that it was a lot quicker and a lot simpler to put the tent up than it was to put the tarp up. I think just because the tent doesn't need to be staked out for you to move on to the next step in setting up the shelter. So you don't have to stake out the one point as you do with the tarp before you can stake out the other point. And because I struggled to stake out the tarp because of the rocky ground here, I think it was just much easier to put the tent up. Nice tent, by the way, a lot of room in here. This UNIGEAR tent has a tension ridge that adds quite a lot of extra head and shoulder space. So really cool to have it up. And I think we can go to comparing the two shelters shortly, and we'll get around to which one is the best for your bug out bag, or for your emergency bag, or for your hiking bag even. Right, just time for a break now. I think some noodles are in order. Like I said, there's no such thing as bad weather, there's only bad gear. And if your gear is organized, then you should be pretty much okay in any sort of weather. But that's easier said than done. So at the moment, I'm going to make some noodles. So first we're going to boil some water. The ideal is, of course, to not burn holes in your shelter. Oh, right. So for lunch, we have got noodles. These are Indomie instant noodles. My dad's suggestion. Anyway, I'm going to boil this water first because I fetched it from the river. As far as setup goes, really the tent is so much easier to set up and so much quicker. Obviously a tarp is more versatile, so you're going to be able to use a tarp in different circumstances from where you can a tent. So for example, if you've got trees, you're going to be able to set the tarp up in an A-frame. I've set it up as a teepee because I don't have trees in the area here. Well, there are some trees, but I wanted a flat space as well. So kind of a bit tricky to figure out campsites, but it's sort of okay. Then tarps are more versatile in general. You can wear a tarp as a poncho if you need to. You can set it up over a camping hammock if you need to. You can, I don't know, you can do a whole lot more with a tarp than what you can do with a tent. However, with a tent, you've obviously got the fly sheet that you can use for those purposes as well. So we have got plenty of spices and cool stuff. Okay. Let's see. So as far as like accessibility goes, it really is easier to work in and out of a tent. I'm currently like hugging the middle pole of my shelter here. It's not the easiest thing to work around. And also getting into and out of the tent is much easier than getting into and out of this tarp shelter. Is that gonna fit in there now? Yeah. You know what I forgot? I forgot to bring a spoon. Oh well, I'll have to drink my noodles shortly. X-falls are a bit small here, but it's manageable. As far as stormproofing goes, I really think that tent is going to take the cake as well. I think there's a bigger advantage to having like an enclosed shelter. And it's much easier to move the tent. So if the weather changes, you don't have to try and position the entire tarp, where with a tent, you can unstake it, lift it up, turn it around, so that the weather doesn't actually blow into your tent. This particular tent also has 2 doors. Because tents are enclosed shelters, they also keep out all of the creepy crawlies. And when you get into the wilderness, you end up dealing with things like mosquitoes and ticks and fleas, and all of those carry diseases. So it's really great for long-term use to have some of the other shelter that you can enclose yourself or your gear in, so that you can keep all of the bugs out. That goes for snakes, scorpions, and any venomous animals in the environment as well. It also helps to have an enclosed shelter if you've got predators in the environment that tend to get really nosy and might come sniffing around your shelter. The other advantage that a tent has over a tarp is that if you've got animals or you've got kids, you can close them in there and leave them. So if you are moving around just outside of your camp and you're concerned about them getting out of sight or wandering off, then it's much easier to close them all off inside the tent. I think because the tent has 2 doors that close off, it also has a temperature advantage. So from a core body temperature maintenance perspective, you're probably going to do better in a tent than in a tarp. And I know you guys are going to absolutely have a field day with me for saying this, but I do think for long-term use as a bug out shelter, I think a tent is a better option. Heading out into the bush and having an emergency shelter on you, I think the tarp is great. Or for a little bushcraft weekend out in the woods, I think a tarp is perfectly fine. But I am also now sitting on the ground here, where if I were in the tent, I would actually have a much better time sitting on the floor of the tent. There is actually plenty of room to sleep behind here. It's just the entrance, because of the tracking pole, the entrance is a bit small. But I mean, you can set this up completely differently if you like. I think there might be some sand in my food later. Okay, that must be like a chili oil. If you do forget your spoon at home, like me, you can go ahead and quickly carve yourself some chopsticks from the local fauna and flora. Just remember to rinse them off nicely before you actually use them. And this is also why you carry a knife in the bush. And try to be sure that you're not using poisonous plants for carving chopsticks. Well guys, that's my take on tarps versus tents. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Remember to hit like and subscribe. And until the next time, live ready. Don't forget your spoon at home, because that's not living ready.